I know you heard what I read at Fisher Poets. You did. Nobody else did. So I guess I'll just read the crap I read at Fisher
I
Poets.
think you better.
So this is what I read at Fisher Poets last year. It got pretty good reception. It's called urban fishery, which is what it is. There's very few of those places where there's fisheries going on in the middle of a population center like that. There's actually one in New York, a little bit in Seattle, but this was one of the greatest. This was one of the best ones, really.
Is it in Seattle?
No, this is urban fishery. This is the herring fishery of San Francisco Bay.
Oh, I wondered.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll start out with a quotation from William Butler Yeats, who was my favorite of last year. I gotta find a new guy. There is another world, but it is in this one. Urban fishery. The day will come when, by the grace of God, old and incompetent, oblivious and incontinent, I'll be spending my last days flat on my back in a berth assigned to the nearly dead. Perhaps by some serendipitous circumstance, a person wearing dirty clothes will enter my room at the same moment a diesel bus passes by the open window. The combinations of smell, combined with the fragrance of stale hospital food, may send my enfeebled and diminished mind. Hey, come in and sit down, please. Hi, I'm Harlan.
Oh, no, I've seen you around town.
Really?
Definitely.
Sitting around.
Main Street, man.
Yeah. So was I. Oh, that combination of smell combined with the fragrance of stale hospital food will probably send my enfeebled and diminished mind, my hopefully intact soul, back to the herring boat, to the confined cabin where we slept and ate our meals. It's the world of boat smell. I will be there again with my captain on the old prime time. Uncle Sam Papetti and his brother Squash will be there. Cousin Rico and his partner Guzzy will be there. Freckles, the one the old Italians call Speckles. Dominic and Tony Gio, old Italian bachelor brothers, who fished with their father in a sailboat. They'll all visit. We'll set our herring nets under the rich people's houses in Raccoon Street. We'll do this work right underneath their beds, where they sleep the sleep of the well-fed and comfortable. Pianissimo, says Tony to his brother Dom. Don't let the corks rattle in the gunnel. We don't want to wake the people upstairs. And we'll say hello to Marie DeSantis, the first woman fisherman I ever saw. I'll greet the boys from Bellingham who didn't need nicknames to be great fishermen. Once again, we'll be on our boats in San Francisco Bay. We'll pull night patrol on the shimmering Mill Pond Bay. We will search for the smart little fish, a creature which individually seems to have the mentality of a piece of seaweed, but travels in large schools, which seem to add up to more than the sum of its individuals in intelligence and wisdom. In peril, they will gather in tight balls for protection. Only in the reproductive act, when they randomly mill, in the company of, but out of sync with the school, do they truly become individuals. At that time, they become most vulnerable to our nets. Again, we will travel the shorelines and map the terrain beneath the surface. We will gather in a code group and reference the landmarks of good sets. We'll meter Yellow Bluff, where we search its underwater escarpment. We'll search the Red Blinky, the Naked Lady, Cone Rock and Mud Bay. We will peer into the channels, undersea valleys, and pinnacles, looking for the little fish, all the while noting their movements and speculating on where they might go to spawn. We will circle Alcatraz, the Angel Island, working our way towards the Marin County shoreline, with its mini environment, wooded valleys, which open into little coves that seem like tiny exotic worlds. We'll cross the entrance of San Francisco Bay, where the entire watershed of Central California flows through a narrow gap in the Coast Range. For the last time, together, we'll visit that singular city, post-war city, of free-range wildlife, brave new city, midway in the American century. Golden city, existing only in my heart. On the San Francisco side, we'll key the radio and tell the code group we have metered Crissy Field, Gas House Cove, Fort Mason. We found no sign as we wait between the piers. We'll tell them we've passed the clock tower and are approaching the bow and arrow. We found no sign. South of the Bay Bridge is a different environment than north. Here there is no major river system draining the watershed of a vast landmass. This area is surrounded by coastal mountains and hills. It is shallow, somewhat resembling Chesapeake Bay, with flat shorelines, water marshes and estuaries, tules and mudflats. The bottom is a sloping valley, gradually climbing to shore. We'll travel south along the waterfront, passing China Cove and Mission Bay, where the Spanish landed and made their first camp, which was once an actual bay with a good freshwater creek. We're headed for Hunter's Point, where the show begins. There we will search the 19th century dry docks and World War II piers and wait for the right time. Maybe we will move our search westward around the corner to the estuary between Candlestick Park and the Naval Shipyard. Uncle Sammy and I once caught 41,000 pounds of rye herring there. Joe Montana won the Super Bowl about a mile away, from where we were working our nets. When the herring come, we will cross under the Bay Bridge and move south in a 20-foot mid-water layer, 30 feet down the water column. When they go as far south as they will allow the tide to carry them, the school will pause. As the school turns and begins to ebb, the right fish will coalesce into tight swirling balls and fall upon the nearshore or onshore structures. Like a pinball machine, balls of fish hit the nets and the nets will light up. Anybody standing on the shore with a few small fish hooks and some red and orange yarn can literally fill a bucket in no time. It's a wonderful protein harvest for the naturals. Once we fished in one of the only true urban fisheries. It was, and is, a rich fishing grounds located in the middle of a major population center, containing world-class cities, grown together so one can barely be differentiated from the other. Two worlds. The world of making your living in a boat, and everybody else's world, existing in the same time in the same place. New York City on the Hudson River was like this. Shad, clopaids, cousins of herring, were caught there. People have been harvesting them since Indians and Dutchmen. Fishers still do it within sight of New York City. We're all done for now. The telling of this seems fancy. In real time, it seemed a dream. Urban fishery.
Oh.
So,